And we are live for the second episode of season 2 of Gamecock Central's The Hard Fowl. I am your host, Intern Joe Macheca. With me is my co-host, Jack Veltri, and then our guest this week, the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Wellbaum. Wellbaum, how we doing?
We're here.
Mm-hmm.
Nice little drawn out to Camden and back tonight. I'm glad it was worthwhile.
Yeah, worthwhile indeed as South Carolina women's basketball lands the number 2 prospect in the class of 2024, Joyce Edwards, like Wellbaum said, out at Camden. Wellbaum, walk me through. I mean, it was a wild recruitment for Joyce Edwards. Walk me through just kind of that whole saga and everything.
Well, it was interesting. She first attended Dawn Staley camp, she said, when she was in the 6th grade, and Dawn wanted to offer her then, but she left before Dawn could give her the offer. So there's been a lot of stops and starts to this whole recruitment process. But as I think most people who followed it know, Joyce took a lot of visits. She, as her mom put it, traveled the entire country. They went to Texas A&M. They went out west. She visited Stanford, and she wanted Joyce to make sure that she was making the right choice, not just the easy one to stay home. As we've documented a lot, there were different assets to the 3 finalists. Clemson had the major she wants, which is some sort of agricultural engineering. I'm not really familiar with it, so I can't give you too many details about it. LSU also has a similar major because it's they're both state schools, and obviously we've heard a lot of rumors and innuendo about the NIL offers that LSU's made. So there was all that on the table, and Amanda Butler's done a really good job at Clemson of taking what could be a negative and spinning it into a positive, which is that it's a small program in a small town, and she's done a really good job of making it a family atmosphere, and she's recruiting really well, and that appealed to Joyce. But ultimately, she said there were 2 things that really swayed her decision, and one of those was, as our message board posters figured out, was the South Carolina Honors College allows you to create your own major. And even though South Carolina doesn't offer the agricultural engineering major that Joyce wants, she can create her own major and accomplish the same thing. And someone, I don't remember who, so I can't give them credit, but someone noticed that Dawn Staley was wearing a South Carolina Honors College hat after the Maryland game, and was wondering if that was a message to Joyce. And in fact, it was, that she's going to create that major through the Honors College. Joyce attended the game on Sunday against Maryland, and she said that she talked to Asia Wilson at halftime, and she's talked with the freshies before. And after the game, she realized she said it out loud for the first time. She knew that she wanted to go to South Carolina. She told Dawn after the game, she said Dawn looked like she was going to cry tears of joy, and then she got worried that Dawn's going to be mad at her for spoiling her iron facade. But that was when she made the decision. Dawn's been able to keep the secret for a few days. Interestingly, Chloe Kitts was at the signing ceremony, and Joyce did not even tell Chloe. They're best friends. They played together. So it was a not quite down to the wire recruitment, but it was pretty dramatic. But as always has happened in the last few years, the best talent stays home and plays for South Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very big signing in Joyce Edwards. And I was wondering what that hat was. I saw Dawn wearing it. I'm like, what is SCHC?
Yeah.
The Honors College.
People give her lots of gifts, and she gets lots of sort of, one-off outfits and logos and stuff. And I just thought it was one of those. But yeah, it was the South Carolina Honors College hat. So always be recruiting.
Yeah. Jack, you got anything on the Joyce Edwards situation?
I think it's awesome. Chris, hell of a job going out there and getting out to Camden and giving us some good reporting for GC. It's a big commitment, right? 5-star, 5-star recruit. Just another day in the office for Dawn Staley. I haven't been following the team as closely as Chris has been, obviously, on a day-to-day basis, but it really does seem like a great pickup for Dawn. And it's going to be a good pickup for them.
Yeah, Joyce has been a consensus top 2 recruit in this class for 3 or 4 years now. There's been some back and forth. At one point, Jelani Cambridge took over the top spot, and then Joyce and Sarah Strong have been sort of back and forth over the last year and a half. But it's, like I said, consensus top 2. She might be number 1 when it's all said and done. Who knows? I was going back. It's the 4th top 2 prospect that Dawn has signed. The first was Kelsey Bone. Then everyone remembers Asia. And then we tend to forget that Raven Johnson was the number 2 overall recruit. So, it's not an outlier.
Yeah. Like Jack said, just another day in the office. Getting into, you brought up Raven Johnson, and let's get into, I guess, this year's team. Raven leading the way at the point guard position, but obviously Malaysia Fulwiley, I believe is how you say her last name.
Yeah,
also dominating. Fulwiley, yeah.
We're all going to have to learn how to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's been dominating too as a freshman off the bench, but Raven being the veteran. Wellbaum, obviously Dawn Staley played guard. What are you seeing from the guards on this team, and what should excite you as a South Carolina fan watching this team?
Oh, everything should excite you.
Yeah.
I expected them to be good this year. I expected them to be in contention for another Final Four. They've blown all my expectations out of the water. They've looked incredible the first 2 games. And I did a story Monday. Brenda Fries, the Maryland coach, said they're better than last year. And when Brenda Fries says that, it means something, because Maryland's played South Carolina every year since 2016. So she's seen all but most of the Final Four teams. She's seen both national championship teams. She saw 36-1. When she says it's the best team, she's got credibility there. They aren't as deep as they've been in some previous years. But we've seen before, it's not just with depth, it's not just numbers, it's how the pieces fit. Yeah. And there have been a couple of years where the pieces, they had more bodies, but the pieces didn't quite fit together as well as they are right now, or as well as they did in 2019, 2020. They've just got 1 through probably 9 is practically interchangeable. And so when Dawn can substitute, they're not losing anything, but they can change their style. Maryland did a really good job defending Camila Cardoso and taking her out of the game. Yeah. They can't guard her one-on-one because they're not big enough, but they did a great job of getting under her on defense. And on offense, they actually had their center. They don't really have a center, but their 5 was running point guard for a while, and it got Camila in foul trouble. So Dawn just took Camila out, put in Ashlyn Watkins, who has no problem running around the 3-point line, and that was when they started to separate. As far as the guards go, again, I think because of her injury and because of her slow start last year, we kind of forgot that Raven Johnson was the National Player of the Year as a senior in high school. Mm-hmm. When she came in as a freshman, they were expecting her to play major minutes that season behind Destiny Henderson, who was we all know what she did in the championship game, and they still expected Raven Johnson to eat into her minutes. So it was a torn ACL. Those take 1 to 2 years to really get over. This was her first actual off season in the program. She looks a lot trimmer than she did last year. I think it's just this is who she was in high school. This is why, going back when she signed, she said she's the big birdie in the nest, and this is why. this is what she does. And she's got great help around her. Tahina Paopau's a great just compliment. I mean, she's a great player on her own. As a compliment to what Raven does, she's more of a spot-up shooter. She's not quite as fast pushing the pace, but she's she was a first team All Pac-12 performer, and at a time when the Pac-12 was the best conference in the country. So I think because it was Oregon, because it was on the West Coast, I don't think people in our time zone realized how good she was and how good a player South Carolina was getting, because she can shoot, she can score off the dribble. She's not a Zia Cook type, but she can still, take a couple dribbles, pull up, hit a floater, and she can distribute. So they've got a 1-2 punch at point guard where when Raven sits down for a breather, they just slide Paopau over and they don't lose anything. And then you go to, like you said, Full Wiley's stolen the show, and rightfully so. She does things that other players can't do. But don't sleep on Tessa Johnson. I've been singing her praises ever since she first committed. She had a severe, very unusual injury. She had a fractured femur. So that
does not sound good.
No, but and no one knows how it happened. That's the fun part. You're like, fractured femur.
Yeah.
Some crazy story there. No, it's just a stress fracture. Anyway, she missed her entire junior season of high school, and so she kind of dropped out of the national picture with recruiting because of that. But USC got involved with her. She said she fell in love. It was love at first sight when she watched USC play, and then when she saw them. She's from Minnesota. She saw him at the Final Four, and she's like, "This is where I want to go." First cat cameo.
There it is. Yeah, we love that. It's a Wellbaum's cat.
But she was. It was a case of you put your best player at point guard. She was their best player. She played point guard in high school, and I think what has really set her, maybe put her ahead of where we all thought she'd be right now, is that experience, because she doesn't just look to shoot. She looks to create plays. And if the best play is for her to shoot, then she shoots it. So, and her defense was a liability at first. And you can see that she's put in a lot of effort to get better on defense, because if you don't play defense, you don't play. So she had, I think she has 7 steals through the first 2 games, something like that. So it's just they, Full Wiley did not play that well Sunday.
No, she didn't.
I think she, first home game, I think she was putting a little too much pressure on herself because she was a little too aggressive early and got in some foul trouble.
Yeah.
And but if you're going to have a bad game and still have, I think, 12 points, 3 steals, 2 assists, something like that, that's a pretty good off game.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And like, one thing I'm seeing with this team, Wellbaum, if you correct me if I'm wrong, but like, it feels like anybody in this roster, with the exception of Sonia Ja and Sakima Walker, I hope I'm saying that right, but
yeah, Shania Ja.
With the exception of okay. So there's so many names on this team, and especially with the new ones, Tahina Paopau, another new face, doing well, leading the team in minutes, average minutes played per game. Dawn really wants her, obviously, to be something for this team. She averaged double digits in points for Oregon throughout her career, even as a freshman. So that's a very big addition. I think also, too, went under the radar a little bit, and now she's showing why, why she should have been. I mean, obviously going to South Carolina isn't, flying under the radar necessarily, but, was overlooked and necessarily in terms of like the national recruiting transfer portal cycle.
She signed really quickly. It was kind of she told me, I asked her if she watched the Final Four against Iowa, because obviously her biggest strength is her 3-point shooting. And she she pretty much told me that she did watch the game, and she's like, they're a 3-point shooter away from a championship. Yep. I'm a 3-point shooter. She pretty much knew where she wanted to go. She didn't know she wanted to go to South Carolina initially. She didn't know that she'd get offered. But as soon as she entered the portal, Dawn reached out, and pretty much at that point, she kind of knew this was where she wanted to go. Mm-hmm. She took the visit. Her family loved it. That's a big deal for her. Is what her is. They do things as a family, and so. Anyway, she signed pretty quickly and pretty quietly, and I think because she didn't draw it out, not being critical of players who did draw it out, it's an important decision. Mm-hmm. But because she signed so quickly, I think she kind of flew under the radar because there was no drawn out drama as there was with other players. So while everyone was focused on some other players, mm-hmm. forgot about, there's a 3-time all Pac-12 point guard that can shoot threes that just signed with a team who has trouble shooting threes but still went 36-1 last year.
Yeah. It's crazy to say that this team is better than last year's team. And one thing I've noticed as long as I've been around here covering Dawn Staley's teams is that as soon as they go to the Final Four and don't do it, be ready for the next year because they're coming with a vengeance.
I've noticed that there's a vengeance. There's an extra, like when someone makes a play, I'm surprised that they don't get hurt from all the slapping and chest pumps and there's an intensity to so far 2 games, but there's an intensity that wasn't always there last year. I think there were times last year when the stress of being you knew they were favored in every game, and sometimes when they won, it was a relief. And I talked to Olivia Thompson at the Final Four, and I told her it was off the record, so I won't say exactly what she told me. But I asked about the pressure, and she said, "Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, and it's like everybody feels it." And I think that pressure's gone. Well, the pressure's definitely gone this season, and I think they're playing with a different kind of energy again through 2 games.
Absolutely. Jack, you got anything else for Wellbaum?
Just what a day for Carolina, man. We'll get to men's hoops here in a few, I'm sure, but just it's good to see both teams kind of going in the right direction here because for years now it's been like women's basketball has been the standard for college basketball on the women's side at least. But then the men's, it's like, you got Lamont Paris, new coach. South Carolina kind of struggled last year. Can they bring in the commitments? But with who we'll talk about here shortly, definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack, I believe, has some dinner on the way or something like that, so we will get to him in just a second. But yeah, Wellbaum, kind of wrapping things, like we'll talk about, I guess, a little bit more about this team, and then also work our way into kind of the future, what is left and the schedule, and obviously big one against Clemson. We were at the game last year for Clemson. Obviously, that was a big breakout win.
Yeah,
so we'll talk to Clemson and the rest of the schedule in a second, but. One more person, a couple of people I want to bring up. Obviously, Chloe Kitts had a very big game against Maryland. She's going to be very big, in my opinion, for the depth side of things, and also just being one of those players, like I said, just ready to just dominate at any moment's notice, just whenever's needed. And Camilla gets knocked or locked up a couple games. You need your kind of streaky and spot players to be able to step up in a big moment. And Chloe Kitts and I will say Ashton Watkins, Sanaya Fagan, all good role players for Dawn Staley's squad.
Yeah, I was a big believer in Chloe Kitts. I thought that she was ranked 17th in her class, but I thought that she probably should have been top 10, maybe even top 5, because what she does, she, in the rankings, they tend to get overly focused on are you tall? Can you shoot?
Yeah.
Or, is there one thing that really stands out? And she doesn't have that one thing, but she is always where the ball is. She's got that innate ability to be in the right place at the right time. And she's added a lot of muscle. She's grown a couple inches since she got on campus. She's taller than she was last year. She's stronger than she was last year. So I think we're starting to see this is close to the Chloe that we saw in high school. That she's changed. She's grown from being a wing to a 4, more or less. So that's changed a little bit, but otherwise, just the skill set. She can do everything. She's a good passer. She's a good rebounder. She's a good shooter. So you can move her around. She can stretch the floor. She's a good ball handler. She can grab the rebound and start the break. She's the perfect, in terms of talent and ability, she's the perfect glue player. And then I think, and the other thing with her is, she's another one that we kind of forgot about because things didn't go the way she expected when she enrolled early. And I think we were all of us a little bit guilty of focusing more on what went wrong for her last year than what had gone right for her, throughout her high school career. And then Ashlyn Watkins is, everything I just said about Chloe, I could say about Ashlyn, except change the shooting to can jump out of the gym. She's had to learn how to play within the system a little bit, which is normal. She's had to learn sort of, she's had that sort of transition of, now you're going up against opponents who are going to push back. She didn't see a lot of that in high school. But I think we saw what she can do and probably will do. I don't think it was an outlier what she did against Maryland with the double-double where she's grabbing rebounds, she's getting put back, she can grab the rebound and start the break. She can make passes. She had a couple of fantastic passes. One was to Raven for a 3. One was to Pow Pow for a 3. The one to Pow Pow, I have no idea how she even saw her because the other. She was facing one way, and Pow Pow was directly behind her on the other side of the court, and she still hit her for 3. And the pass to Raven for a 3 was off of. They have this out of bounds alley-oop play that they like, and she got shoved off of her spot a little bit and was able to recognize that she got shoved off because of a double team. And she just, audibled and kicked it out to Raven for 3. So, who knows what her ceiling is. It's very high, but I think, a 13-point, 11 rebound double-double is a really good game. And I think we're going to see a lot of those. And then you've got those are 2 sophomores. And then you add Joyce Edwards is right. She's the same style of player as those 2. She's maybe a little smaller than either one. She's not as strong as Ashlyn. She's a little shorter than Chloe, maybe a little more athletic than Chloe, but she can do everything. She can rebound. She's a little raw offensively, but that'll come. Hopefully, well, they're hoping it'll come. It should come. She talked about that tonight, actually, that her big focus is improving her shooting. She gets a lot of garbage points, which is a good thing, that they count the same. And she is just an elite defender. So they're looking at next year being able to run out a front line of Chloe, Joyce, Ashlyn, and that's 3 players that are as talented and as athletic as any frontline players in the country. So they're versatile. That's the other big change that's happened in the past couple of years is they played a very traditional lineup last year, and the rest of basketball is changing, and Dawn's changing with it. This is not that same traditional lineup. This is a very versatile, flexible lineup with, a lot of people can play a lot of positions, and you can move them around and do different things on different possessions. So it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is really fun to watch. And I mean, Dawn obviously has them rolling fundamentally. Everything is looking good for this team. And it's like you said, it's crazy to think that this team could be better than last year's team after all the hype that they got and then ran into a really hot Iowa team. Like that team could have easily gone the distance had Iowa not been as hot shooting wise.
Yeah, I think I do. It's the recency bias, and it's I said a few times USC picked a bad time to have its worst game of the season because that was the worst game they played all season.
Yeah,
if they had even an average game, they would have won. But that's what's in everyone's mind. It's the last thing everyone saw from South Carolina, and the funny thing is, the funny thing on Sunday was someone asked Chloe about whether or not she felt like she was trying to, avenge last season. And Tessa jumped right in and answered. And Tessa and she's like, "Yeah, we're totally, trying to silence everybody that doubted us after that." It's like you weren't on the team.
Yeah.
So they all feel it. They all want to. How should I say? It's all connected. One thing Dawn's done a really good job of, that this university is known for doing the opposite. She's done a really good job of creating a line between her first players through the next generation, through the next players. The old players are always coming back. She's always keeping up with them if on social media. So there's the players past, present, future all feel this same shared identity. And I think that really helps. That helps with recruiting.
Yeah.
But it also helps with, this was supposed to be a down year, but because that just because the freshies are gone, their impact is still there.
Yep. Yeah. And that's what I mean, that's how you build a dynasty, plain and simple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the way that they are, like, obviously last year's team was really good, but the years following a disappointing year or a trip to a Final Four, which I mean, for most teams in the country is, a success, but for the South Carolina team, losing in the Final Four, not going all the way is a disappointment. But the way she keeps following up after not going the distance just proves to you that there is like Wellbaum said, a direct line, and she's going to continue getting good players in. As long as she's the coach at South Carolina, there won't be a problem.
I feel like a broken record. I've been saying this constantly the last 2 weeks. It's, for someone who allegedly can't recruit, the last 3 signing class, well, now 4 signing classes are going to end up being 1. I think the middle one was like 7, 2, and then this year is going to be at worst 3, probably 1 or 2.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Yeah, they just keep reloading.
Yes. Yeah. Time after time. And honestly, like, who wouldn't want to go play for Dawn? I personally would love to go play for Dawn, but she's not recruiting interns at Gamecock Central. Wellbaum, before we get you out of here, looking ahead at this schedule, obviously still plenty of ball left to be played, but give me a couple games that excite you. Obviously they've got Utah at home. They got to play LSU still.
Utah's in Connecticut, so that's going to be a fun. So they've got a little bit of a break coming up. Hold on, let me pull it up so that I don't end up butchering the whole thing. They've got a little bit of a break coming up with Clemson tomorrow night. And then South Dakota State and Mississippi Valley State are the next 2, a couple of bye games. And then there's going to be a fun weekend at the end of the month. They do the Tobacco Road two-step going to North Carolina and Duke over a long weekend. North Carolina's really good. They returned just about everybody from a team that was really good last year. They had a few big-time additions in the portal. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Duke is always a good matchup just because it's, you get to go to Cameron. And then Utah on December 10th, that one's up in Connecticut. That's probably the next one you circle and say this is the big test. North Carolina is going to be tough. Duke can be tough, but Utah lost last night. But that should still be a top 10 game. I got to see Utah a little bit last year in the tournament because they were also in Greenville.
Yeah.
Utah's weakness is that they are very dependent on one player, but it's one very good player. It's Allison Peely, I think is how you say her name. She was the Pac-12 Player of the Year last year. She had foul trouble against Baylor. Was it last night? And she had foul trouble in their tournament loss also. And when she gets in foul trouble like that, they just don't have something else to go to. So that's one where, again, you look at we talked about Chloe and Ashlyn and Fagan and obviously Camilla. It's another situation where USC is going to be able to run player after player at her, and even if they don't draw fouls, they'll try to wear her down. And she's not the longest player, so I think because Chloe and Ashlyn are very long, they have very long arms, and you feel their defensive presence whether they're right up on you or not. So they're going to present a real challenge for her. So it should be a really good game.
Yeah, looking forward to that one. And I mean, I think one of the benefits of this year's team is Dawn has a lot of different lineups that she can plug and play just because she has a lot of versatile players like the Chloe Kitts, Ashlyn Watkins, that she can, pretty much guard anything. You have a strong point guard that's scoring a bunch. You can guard that. Small forward, center, put Camilla on her. So I think that is what will be, kind of the difference going forward for this team. Just being able to, throw it in different sets, being able to guard in different sets and also run offense out of different sets. It's a very multi-dimensional team.
Yeah, almost everybody's a capable ball handler and distributor. It's, I mentioned it earlier. It's the way that basketball is changing.
Yeah.
At all levels of male, female, NBA down to Division III is the positionless face-up jump shooting, and we're seeing that evolution happen with this roster because that last season's roster wasn't necessarily built that way. This year it is. And I mean, we haven't even talked about the two most experienced players, which is, Bree Hall and Camilla Cardoso. So that's how much depth they have.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I know. Like I fully went into the show knowing we weren't going to be able to talk about everyone, because they are so deep and they're all really, really, really good. Like anyone can go off on a given night and whatever the matchups bring. Because I mean, I think Chloe Kitts and Ashlyn Watkins showed that against Maryland, right? Like, having them go off and have really good games against a quality opponent like that proves to you like how deep they really are. And like I said, have people that can go off whenever needed, right? Like you don't have to rely on your stars for this team. They're all really, really, really good. And obviously tonight with the signing of Joyce Edwards, they're getting even better and for years to come. So it's really exciting to see. Wellbaum, you're the man. Thank you for joining us. Where can everyone find you? You want to plug your Twitter?
It's Chris Wellbaum, and it is still Twitter. I refuse to acknowledge the rebrand.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on. As always, we'll have you on a little bit later in the season. Update us as always, but you're the man. Follow him for all of the Gamecock women's basketball coverage this season. He's the man. Nobody knows it better than him. Wellbaum, thank you as always.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. As we are rejoined by my co-host, Jack Veltri. Jack, how's it going?
Man, it's been a while since you had me on. I feel like so.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm honored to be back. Yeah,
been
sorry,
so long.
sorry, I've kind of been off the radar for a
It's
few
okay.
minutes. If you're watching, been making some buffalo chicken dip at home for dinner, so nice and yummy. It's about done, but
Very nice.
we'll talk some hoops real quick for men's, and
Yeah.
we'll get on out of here. So
Yeah, and please, for it's worth noting that I didn't get an invite over for buffalo chicken dip, by the way.
Well, honestly, it's a one-man show here, so
Yeah, see,
I'm
that's
not even sharing with my buddy. So
that's brutal.
he's on his own.
That is brutal. Either way, obviously the Fighting Quarter Zips, as they are known on Twitter, Lamont Paris' squad is playing some pretty good basketball. Jack, so far so good, huh?
Yeah, man, this team is just a ton of fun to watch, to be honest. 3-0 to start the season. I know Monday's game was a little sloppy. You really didn't play overly well. I don't think against a VMI team that's look. They went 7-25 last year. They have a new head coach this season. They're not that good, but at the same time, we don't know much about these teams yet. But South Carolina went through a little bit of adversity. They didn't play overly well. They came off an emotional victory against Virginia Tech the other night, but they still managed to have enough hot streaks to get the job done and move to 3-0 on the year. So you have to be very excited about this team. I mean, look, I'll just be straight up. Compared to last year's team was not fun to watch, to be honest. Just
no.
On the court drama, off the court drama, whatever the case might be. I'm not going to get into specifics here. That's not what we're about. But just not a fun team to watch. But this year, it seems like the new guys on the team are just bringing some better energy, fresh energy to this program, and they're getting the job done so far. Say what you want about how they've played, but they're 3-0, so there's not much to complain about there.
Yeah, I mean, like Jack said, I think this team is streaky enough to get the job done. And one thing that this team is really good at, I forget who said it, but if you're watching and said this to me, credit to you. But they were talking about how in late game situations, this offense just kind of puts the car in neutral and just goes, right? Just with the flow and everything. They're good at, winding the game down. And we saw that Lamont a little bit at Chattanooga. He was really good at that and just, game management down the stretch. He's finding a way to get these guys to play for him. I think that was the biggest thing for me last year, right? Was, in your first year, you want to see your coach. I mean, it's really hard in college basketball, especially in that first year when you have a revolving door of guys coming in and out. You don't necessarily know. And obviously Gigi Jackson, one and done, players like that are only going to be with your program for a year or two. It's really hard to get those kind of guys to play for you. So now this year with Lamont, what he's trying to do is build the program up. Like I believe Jamie was on last year. We had him on last year one time, and he said this. He's like, you want to see everyone bought in from start to finish in years like this because you're trying to build the program. You're trying to build up basically whatever you can, build for the future because you have guys that are going to be sticking around, right? And then you're recruiting too. So you want to have some slight improvement. But Jack, I mean, 3-0 and also really fun to watch. They're playing like a team as well, I think is another change from last season. I think, again, like I said, since it is such a revolving door of guys in year one, I think, it's going to be hard to share the basketball. Everyone wants to be out to get themselves. I think it was mutual across the board. I'm not pinpointing it on one player who specifically did that at all, even though you guys, you could, I'm not saying that. I think it's really hard. But they're playing as a team, plain and simple. A lot of really, really good players on this team. Jack, I guess, what are you seeing? Who's standing out to you? Obviously, Jamie talked about Talon Cooper, but who else really standing out?
I think first off, the starting five, I think, is just very good so far.
Yeah.
And it's a little early to tell, and this might be a hot take. I don't know what the case is, but I'm not overly. Stephen Clark's all right. I think. I don't know. The problem is who else do you put in at that five position? Because he's an undersized center forward.
Yeah.
He's playing as a center, so he's kind of undersized in that aspect. And he's not playing a ton of minutes. He starts the game, but then he only plays like 15, maybe.
Center was the one position this team was lacking.
Yeah,
right.
And we knew that.
Yeah, we did. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It was kind of like that last year, even with Gigi Jackson and Hayden Brown. You didn't have a true center on this team, but it's like I just don't. I don't understand why Clark's still getting run out there to start if he's only going to play limited minutes. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
maybe it's a thing with like, oh, Josh Gray comes better off the bench, or Zach Davis, who could probably play the 5-2 since he's got some good size. He might come better off the bench. I don't know what the case is, but it's still early, so I'm not going to jump to any conclusions. But getting back to what we were talking about with who's impressed me, just those new transfers, Miles Studi, Talon Cooper, BJ Mack. They've been really impressive so far. Mack obviously had the game winner in Friday's win over Vatech. And then Studi, I mean, he's an unsung hero in that game, to be honest.
Dog. Yeah.
I think he had maybe 21 points in that game against Virginia Tech. I mean, Mack gets all the credit because he had that last shot. And to be fair, he did shoot the ball very well. But Studi, man, he got them started and was hitting those threes consistently. So, yeah, those are some guys I'm very impressed with. And then if Talon Cooper's defense can come along like I think it will, then he might be the best player on this team at the end of the day because we know he can shoot. We know he can drive to the hoop and make some plays happen. But if his defense can catch up, man, it's gonna be fun to watch. So those are the guys that I'm just very impressed with so far. And then Michi Johnson, he could still do his thing.
3G.
Yeah, 3G. I feel like we're still missing the full 3G though. I feel like he's had a little bit of up and down to start the year, but I think once like Clemson, ECU, those kind of games roll around, SEC play,
he's got to warm up a little bit, right? And I think.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You have to understand too. There's a big difference with this team compared to last year. Last year,
very big.
It was Michi and Gigi.
Yes.
Now, I think personally, this is just me. I think not having Gigi on the team is a lot better for them. They could spread the floor a lot more, get more shots up instead of, oh yeah, you need to give Gigi 20 shots a game. And then you'd also just take the drama off the floor and stuff. So, but Michi coming back though this year was big. And I know he's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start, but I think he's definitely going to heat up. But it's good that you have other guys around him that can make up for his missed shots.
Yes.
That's the big thing that was kind of missing last year. Like last year's team, I don't think they would have beaten Virginia Tech. I think they would have
correct. Yeah.
They would have fallen apart like they always did in the last few minutes last year and given the game away. But this year's team, you have the guys to make up for anyone that's having a bad night.
Yeah. You have veterans that can ball, man. Like plain and simple. Like Talon Cooper, Miles Studi, those guys can absolutely hoop. And I think that's what you need, right? Like last year, no offense to Hayden Brown, but Hayden Brown was not as talented as a guy like Talon Cooper in terms of a veteran who's been there before, can also play really well. But like you need veterans that can also just ball out on your team as you're building up this program. And I think Studi and Talon Cooper are both really, really, really good. And have potential. And also I think, they kind of level out the 3G, right? Like I think the Michi Johnson to get going, you need him to be a little swaggy. You need him to be chucking, maybe take some questionable threes within reason, obviously, but you need him to kind of feel like himself, play like himself. And as balanced as Studi and Cooper have been playing, I think that's huge for this backcourt. And then obviously in the front court, South Carolina needs Josh Gray to step up, man. Like last year it was a little bit like, okay, he's got the training wheels. Josh Gray has the size to, be a really good big.
And the rebound ability, might I add. He's a hell of a rebounder.
Yeah, very, very good rebounder. And you're waiting for him to step up, right? It's time to take the training wheels off. Josh Gray, like go be the man, because playing next to BJ Mack, it's like, you have a partner in crime next to you. Go do your thing. Go rebound. Go block shots. Like, go be a big man. And you have a partner in crime. You've got a backcourt that's going to get you the ball. Like, it's set up for you to go, be the man. And so it's time for Josh Gray to do that. And I'm sure I'm not calling out Josh Gray, but it is time to step up, right? Like, this is the one area that this team needs. And sure, he's been banged up and whatnot. I get that. But this team needs a center to step up. And, it's Josh Gray's time.
Probably. That might be why he's coming off the bench. But hey, nothing wrong with constructive criticism around here.
Yeah,
we tell it how it is. So I mean, look, Josh Gray, he had an illness the other day in Charlotte, so that's why I was like,
he's gonna ease into it too. Like I firmly expect him to be the guy, right? We saw sparks of it last year where, I mean, I believe it was the Arkansas game where Josh Gray came in, had a bunch of blocks, bunch of rebounds, and just really held his own in the paint. So it's going to take him a little bit to get going. But I mean, I think Lamont still believes in him. The team still believes in him. He's got to get going.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Jack, what like you've been obviously watching this team. What has impressed you about Lamont so far this season?
I think just how do I say it? I think just the demeanor he has.
Yeah.
Just the way he's coached this team. I think it's, there hasn't really been a moment yet where things have gotten like super tough. So when South Carolina eventually does lose a game, which could happen relatively soon, it could happen tomorrow night, honestly, if we're being real. Even though DePaul is not a very good team, just heading out west might have that lingering effect. So when this team goes through a few losses, like they probably will at some point, especially in SEC play, that's when we'll have a better idea of what kind of progression Lamont has made as a coach in year two. I think he did a fine job last year with what he had to work with. But with more talent, I think, is it fair to say this team should potentially make the NIT, like with the way they're playing? I mean, I don't know.
Out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, with the way that the NIT's kind of changed, and
they're going to beat some good teams this year, Jack.
Exactly.
I think if they can play together, and like I think that's what we're seeing. And I love the point on Lamont's demeanor. I think this is kind of what he wanted to do last year, but with the characters and personalities, not just Gigi, but everyone on that team, taking the approach he has this year is a little hard. So I think this year, like guys are bought in. It's not as intense. You're not as micromanaging. You kind of just get to, have your guys play your style of basketball and play for you. I think that's huge.
I agree. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it really is too early just to tell just about everything, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, we could say this team's making the NCAA tournament, honestly.
But
it's way too early to tell and probably won't happen. But it's just an example. But that goes with saying everything about this team. Lamont, I think, in the long run, I'm not sure if he's going to be the guy to get them to where they want to go, which is the NCAA tournament and contending in the SEC. I'm not sure yet. It's way too early to tell that, but I think he's the right guy to deal with this type of situation he's got. Less drama on the team, less egos, just basketball, man. And I think that's what he wants to do. And he's not the outlandish, outgoing kind of dude. I don't think. I think he's the more humble, kind of laid back kind of guy.
Players coach.
Yes, players coach. And we're gonna get to these recruits in a second, but I mean that's why these guys are committing to him. I think, in my opinion, just the way like they want to play for a guy that's gonna have their back and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, year two, I think this is the foundation year for Lamont. Like, lay out what kind of coach you want to be, how you want to coach this, and he's beaten good basketball teams. So the basketball side of things is good. But yeah, Jack, the jury's still out on if he's necessarily the guy. But this season, the way it's way too early to tell how it's going to end up. But the way this team is playing, it's team basketball, and obviously you need a couple guys to step up in certain spots. But so far so good for this year's team. Jack, you mentioned the recruits. Obviously, South Carolina had a big one today. You want to walk me through those?
Yeah, y'all thought we were going to go the whole 50 minutes so far without talking about the main man. You thought this was just a Joyce Edwards show, man. Look out for Eli Ellis, man. That is a big get for South Carolina. In case you missed it in the last hour here, the 4-star guard out of North Carolina, Hickory to be exact, committed to South Carolina and Lamont Paris. It's just a really good get for this guy, man. Lamont has done a hell of a job, I think, recruiting and bringing in the talent. And like I said before, I think the players that he's bringing in are buying into what he's selling. He is a player's coach, but I think he's also a man with a plan. Any coach out there should have a good plan, but it's all about execution and stuff and what you've got planned down the road. And I think Lamont is a guy that wants to build a winning team. I think he knows just about as well as any of us that it's not happening overnight. But when you get guys like Eli Ellis, Trent Noah, Oku Federico, other guys like that, you're really setting yourself up for success in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously recruiting is half the battle for Lamont. So far so good. You know, it's trending upwards, and I think this kid is part of the reason why. You know, Ellis is talented. You need point guards, especially in this system, guys that are bought in, like Jack said. And I think Ellis is no exception. Seems bought in, and you know, getting a guy, you know, at this point in the recruiting cycle, I think that's big. Very, very big for South Carolina basketball.
And the thing with Ellis is, I'll mention a few more other things about him since we kind of just scratched the surface with him. He's the fourth best prospect in the state of North Carolina, and then 17th best point guard in the country. A reminder, he's going to be with the class of 2025. So it's a little early for him to commit. But at the end of the day, it is a good sign that South Carolina ended up getting him, and you lock him up now compared to, you know, the waiting game and stuff. And we'll see what happens with him, but that's very good that they got him early. But the other thing with Ellis, you know, he's a great basketball player and all. I think he has a ton of confidence. I mean, he's spoken to On3 about, you know, how he can be an electric shooter and stuff, and how he plays with a lot of confidence. He's a scrappy kind of dude. Talks a lot of trash right off the bat, and I don't know if they're going to be similar players. I haven't watched Ellis a ton, other than just writing about him and stuff. But you know, he kind of just sounds like a Michi Johnson type of guy, like a raw kind of guy that's going to go out and score and let you know about it, which I think can honestly benefit this team well in a few years, especially if they get kind of good, because then you can back up the trash talk and all that. But yeah, and then with Ellis, he's got a pretty big following on social media, which right out the bat, you might be like, Jack, what are you talking about? What does that have to do with anything? But when you have 1 million followers on between TikTok and Instagram, and the way social media has kind of just
I didn't know this.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
He's a big social media star. So with the way social media kind of impacts everything nowadays,
it's true. Yeah,
getting a guy with an already established brand will bring in other names. I think just right off the bat, you'll get guys that want to come play for South Carolina and stuff like that. And it's an underrated factor of his commitment. I mean, his on the court play is what really matters at the end of the day. You could be a social media star and suck at scoring and stuff, and it doesn't help. But if he's able to play well and then have that kind of background, I think it'll really benefit him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jack, you want to talk about our sponsors before we get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely. Our first sponsor is none other than our good friends over at Liberty Tax. Taxiety is an uncertain feeling you get right before doing your taxes, but you don't have to go through it alone. The tax team at Liberty Tax in Irmo, Lexington, and Columbia will walk you through the process, clear up any confusion, and guarantee you'll get the biggest possible refund or your money back. It's tax time if you're in a hurry for your refund. Call on the tax team at Liberty Tax. They are fast, accurate, and guaranteed. If you think you might be owing Uncle Sam, call on the tax team at Liberty Tax to make sure you're not paying more than you should owe. They'll find every possible deduction for you. Locally owned, operated, staffed by tax professionals from your neighborhood. Open 9 to 9 on weekdays and 9 to 5 on Saturdays with multiple service options. Start through the Liberty Tax mobile app or through the desktop portal. Make an appointment or just walk in. Give a call to upload your tax documents. And when you come in, your return will be ready to review and sign. Give them a call on your screen right now. And for those listening, 803-462-5576. Once again, 803-462-5576 for all of your tax needs. And our good friend Clint Hammond is our next sponsor. Clint Hammond over there at the Movement Mortgage Network. He's the man. Give him a call. And if you are in need of help with your mortgage, call our friend Clint Hammond of the Movement Mortgage Network. He's been in the mortgage industry since 2003, which allows him to help everyone from the first-time home buyer to the complicated and complex jumbo buyer. Whether you're looking for a new home or purchase a new home or refinance, nothing is more important than a well-thought-out financial strategy that comes with 5-star customer service. He's even helped out our very own Wes Mitchell and former quarterback Perry Orth for their mortgages. So give our guy Clint a call. He's always above us on the Gamecock Central live programming and all of our podcasts. 803-771-6933. Once again, 803-771-6933 for all of your mortgage needs. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this week's edition of The Hard Fowl, Season 2, Episode 2. Jack, it was a pretty fun episode. We got the rundown from Wellbaum, and then we're able to cover, all of South Carolina men's basketball. So far, so good. And then, obviously, the big signing for the 2025 class. But like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know in the comments or on Twitter if you guys like this live form or if we should keep just releasing it podcast form. Either way works for us, but let us know. Hit us up. Next show, I believe there is a GC Live tomorrow, and then obviously Mike Yuva and I will be live for the GC Live post-game show following South Carolina and Kentucky on Saturday night. Well, I hope you guys have a good evening, good rest of your week. We will see you next week.